Stone Age people made jewellery out of things like shells, tusks and the bones of small animals. They drilled holes through these things and joined them together using natural twine or strips of leather. Salt dough is one of my favourite things to make because however much flour I have, I know that I have to have half the amount of salt. So in here I've got just under 1 cup of flour, or 1 cup by this measurement here, a cup, and inside I've got just under half full with salt. So I'm going to tip that into the bowl, and then I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to add a bit of water, a little bit at a time, and as I add it, I'm going to stir it up. I'm going to hope that this goes a little bit better than the last time I recorded myself making salt dough for these videos, where I was telling everyone how if you put too much water in, it's easy to fix with a bit of flour and stuff like that. And then just to prove my point, I then went and put far too much water in. Oh well. It was a learning experience, that's what we'll call it. So you can see it's starting to break up now and look a bit crumbly. Obviously you want it to be a bit softer than that. This is it, this is where I've added too much water. Oh no, actually, I think I've got away with it this time. But at least we know that if I do add too much water, oh, it's gone flying. At least we know that if I do add too much water, I can fix it. Because the salt dough decorations that we made before, they turned out all right in the end, even if I do say so myself. So that's starting to look a lot more like a dough. I'm going to try feeling it with my hands, see how it feels. Yeah, that's pretty much there. So I'm just going to flip it over and just pick up all of those crumbs. Oh, my sleeves rolled up. So I'm being careful today to do this with one hand because I cut myself earlier today, just there, really awkward place. And my top tip for this video is if you've got a small cut or something and you're making salt dough, be careful because if it gets in your cut, it don't half sting. That's where the old saying, getting salt in the wound, comes from. And my phone's just tinged. I forgot to put that on silent. But all those other things aside, there we go. Lovely ball of salt dough ready to start modelling with. I'm going to start off by making a fang. I might even make 2 of these, depending how it goes. So I'm going to get a nice big chunk of salt dough and I'm going to roll it out. And I want it to be wider at one end than the other, but not too narrow either. I also don't want it to have any of those little sort of cracks in it. I want it to be nice and solid. I want it to be quite robust when it's made so it doesn't break too easily. How sharp I can make it at the end. Ooh. There we go. Oh, that's a nice sized fang. And then the most important part is making the hole. So I'm going to use a straw for this. I want to make sure I don't do it too close to the end. There we go. Just give it another little roll. And the good thing is these are going to be quite rustic, quite lumpy bumpy, quite irregular, but that's probably going to make it look even more authentic and old, like a proper Stone Age piece of jewellery. I'm imagining that the first fang that I made is probably from a saber-toothed tiger or some sort of animal like that, that the person might have hunted and was so proud that they caught one that they decided to drill a hole in its tooth and hang it round their neck. It's kind of like a trophy. I'm a really amazing hunter, look what I was able to hunt. This one, I think, I'm actually going to make it a bit shorter, so I'm going to break that one off. This could be maybe a smaller tooth from the same animal, or it could be a different animal altogether. There's some really amazing creatures living back then. I'm just going to do it the same shape. This one's just going to be a smaller version. Try and keep that point at the end. And back with the straw. So I'm also going to make some sort of like little smaller kind of knuckle type bones. I think they're even smaller than that. Just sort of like odd little bits of bone that could be from any kind of creature. Odd sort of shapes, not perfectly round, just kind of a bit blobby. Kind of going to make them a bit textured around the edge like you get with some bones, a bit sort of knobbly. So I'm going to do this almost like a kebab. That's the word I want, a kebab on a skewer, like that. Yeah, actually I think I quite like that shape as it is. So make that hole a bit bigger, work it around a bit. There we go. Now I've also had an idea to make some shells to hang on the necklace as well. And I've got these sort of trays from some lovely chocolate seashells I consumed recently, and I noticed that a lot of them have these holes in the bottom, but this one and this one don't. So I'm going to see if I could use them as a mould. This could be a complete disaster, but I'm going to have a go. So let's get the right amount of dough. Push it in. What I'm wondering is whether I can pop it out or whether I need to leave it in to dry. I might have a go and see what happens. Popping it out. Okay, can I get this out easily? That's the big question. Probably the answer to that is no. I'm going to use up the last of my salt dough by doing something really simple that leaves a lovely sort of pattern in the salt dough, which could be anything from like a shell or a bit of bone or stone. All you've got to do is get it in your fingers like this and sort of squeeze it. And when you let go, you can see it's got these lovely sort of ridges and marks that your fingers have made. Easy peasy. Here we have my salt dough fangs and bones and stones and hopefully shells all drying on the windowsill. I've ended up making a fair bit for two reasons. I wanted to use up all the salt dough that I made, didn't want to waste any, and also because I thought I could make a whole assortment of Stone Age jewellery that we could potentially use for dress up in our new prehistory school session that myself and my wonderful volunteers are currently designing. So I'm going to leave them here to dry on the windowsill for a few days. I'm not sure how long it will take as they're a bit thicker than the things that I've made in the past. You can of course also bake these in the oven in a really low heat for a few hours, and that also dries them out, but I'm always worried when I do that in case they crack. And also with my shells over here in the plastic, I of course can't put plastic in the oven, so they're definitely not going to be baked. So yeah, I'm going to leave these for a bit and then I'll show you the results in a few days when I paint them up and then I turn them into an assortment of Stone Age jewellery. It's been just over a week. My salt dough creations are really dry, ever so hard, and they are ready now for painting. I'm going to start off by painting the biggest fang that I made. I was a bit worried when I made it because it felt quite heavy. I thought it might be like quite heavy when it's dry, but actually it's dried ever so light, so that's really good. I haven't got to worry about it being ever so heavy around somebody's neck. What's interesting about most of my fangs, these pointy ones, all seem to have dried with a dent in them. I've no idea why, but I actually think that probably makes them look even more like teeth, or at least that's what I'm going to say anyway. Sort of mix this slightly brown, slightly yellow, kind of off-whitish colour that I'm sort of painting onto these, just to give them a bit more colour than what they've got already. So I'm probably only going to focus really on one side, as they're going to hang in the necklace like this, facing forwards. I'll show you how to string them so they do that as well later on. Can put a little bit more colour on it here. Blend in white, just to make it look like, you know, it might have been in an animal's mouth, but who knows what they've been eating. Could be stained all sorts of colours. I think the trick is here is not to overdo it too much, and I actually think that looks pretty good as it is. I had a mixture of success with the shells. These ones turned out beautifully. You can see the kind of the pointy shell shape there. So they were sort of stuffed into that mould that way up. I left them for about 4 days, I think it was, and then I kind of just gave them a wiggle and they popped out. And when they popped out, this part was still very wet, just as it had been when it had gone in, because of course it's in the plastic, it's not exposed to any air, but the top bit had dried out. So once I got them out, I was able to sort of lie them that way up in the sun for a few more days, and now they're all hard all over. I'm going to try and make the shell quite pretty, I think. I'm going to maybe put a little bit of pink in there with the white, and maybe even also a little bit of blue. Some shells have this lovely kind of pink hue to them. I think that would also be a nice contrast against these bones as well. I could probably do a larger brush for this, but my bigger brushes have got paint on them and I'm far too lazy to stand up and clean them right now. But I think, you know, added control for more delicate work, that's what I'm doing. There we go, oops, painting my finger as well. There we go, so I've kind of got that pink sort of hue on it. And then I'm going to just add in a bit of blue. Just a bit of shady maybe in some of these groovy bits. Like that. Maybe even, see how this goes, a little bit of yellow. Might be slightly more colourful than the average shell, but then some shells do have all sorts of colours. When you look really closely, you'd be surprised sometimes just how many colours are in there. But either way, I think that's looking quite pretty, so I'm going to leave it there. So these little ones we said were kind of almost like little sort of knuckle bones. So I'm going to go back to the bone colour and paint this with that, just to give it a bit more of a realistic feel. Although they do look quite good unpainted, so if you really didn't fancy painting them, I still think you'd have a very cool looking necklace if you just left them as it was. So that's already looking quite nice. Add on just a bit of darker colour, there we go, just to maybe give the edges a bit more definition. Oh, that looks nice, doesn't it, with that kind of, yes, very good. I also made these kind of stones, I'm going to call them, where I kind of squeezed them in my fingers to give this really cool little texture. So I think I'm going to go for something a bit different with these. I'm going to go for a dark colour. I think these could be, you know, fascinating bits of stones that they might have found lying around. Maybe a bit of flint or something. I'm going to paint a circle there as well, around the edge. Sometimes you get those stones with like a dark middle and then they've kind of got brown edge. So I'm going to see if I can, very roughly speaking, do something a bit similar to that. If you wanted to do this very neatly and precisely, you probably ought to have waited for the black to dry before going on with the brown. But I quite like it when all the colours kind of mix together and it's a bit unpredictable. I find that more fun to paint because I'm not very good at keeping things very neat and precise. But blobby mess, that I can do. Just going to paint the sides. This time I'm just going to paint under here a bit just because it's quite a contrast to the front, and if it does flap around and stuff it'd be really obvious if the back isn't painted too. I've been busy painting all of my fangs and shells and stones and bits of bone, and now the first ones that I've done are just about dry. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to string these up onto a necklace so that they hang facing forwards, even though the holes are on the front rather than going through them. I'm just going to use an ordinary ball of string to tie my necklace together. Stone Age people probably would have used natural fibres or bits of leather, things like that to have done theirs, but I think this kind of string looks sort of rustic enough for it to play the part well. So I'm going to want to start maybe about that much string. So you want to thread on your first bit. I've left it attached to the ball, so there's no need to take it away at the moment. So I've got quite a loop left. And then where this one is, I'm going to tie a knot. Ooh. Going through like that. And then I'm going to double knot it, tie the knot again. Because this also not only lets them hang facing forward, but also means they're not going to be moving around. When you've got necklaces with these big sort of chunky things on them and big holes and stuff, if they're sort of sliding up and down and knocking together and stuff, it can be quite annoying to wear. So that's another thing that I was thinking when I decided to do it this way. So decide how close you want them to be together, then tie another knot. There we go. Make sure they're hanging all right, side by side. This one actually needs to be a bit looser so it can go on top a bit more. There we go. And then tie another double knot in the top. There we go. I've got a system now. And then the last one, you can have this sort of the same distance apart, or maybe you want it a bit closer or further away. Entirely up to you guys when you do this. It doesn't have to be perfectly measured out, because I don't think that's how they would have done things back then. Just play it by your eye, look at it and just see what you think looks nice and go with that. There we go. So those are my 3 fangs hanging on the necklace. I want this to be about the same sort of length so that they hang in the middle. So if I move these along here, you can see the end comes to there. Now I want this to kind of loop over someone's head so they haven't got to undo it. So I don't know if I ought to have actually made this bit a bit longer, so I think I will do that next time. But I'll see what this one turns out like with it this length. So I'm going to cut it here so they're equal length. Then I'm going to tie a knot in the end, and I'm going to keep these ends quite short so it can fit over somebody's head, hopefully. Or if not my head, hopefully it'll fit nice and easily over a child's head. Here we go. Needs to be good and tight, like that. And there we have it. Stone Age necklace.